My name is Aisha, and I want to tell you about something that changed my life forever. I was 28 years old when this happened, living in Riyadh with my family. I had always tried to be a good person, following all the rules and doing what was expected of me. My parents were proud of me because I never caused trouble and always respected our traditions. That year, I decided to go on a pilgrimage with my Aunt Fatima. She was much older than me, maybe 60 years old, and she had made this journey many times before. I was excited but also nervous because it would be my first time traveling so far from home. We packed our bags with water bottles, dates, some bread, and extra clothes. My mother hugged me tight before we left and told me to stay close to Aunt Fatima no matter what happened. The journey started well. We traveled by bus with a large group of people, maybe 40 or 50 others. Everyone was friendly and we sang songs together. I remember looking out the window and seeing the city slowly disappear behind us. The buildings got smaller and smaller until all I could see was sand. The desert stretched out forever, like a golden ocean with waves that never moved. After many hours, we arrived at a resting place where everyone would stay for the night. There were tents set up and people were cooking food over small fires. The smell of spiced rice and grilled meat filled the air. I helped Aunt Fatima spread out our blankets inside one of the tents. She seemed tired from the journey, so I brought her water and made sure she was comfortable. That night, lying under the stars, I felt peaceful. I had no idea that everything was about to change. The next morning, we woke up early before sunrise. The plan was to walk to a special place about 3 kilometers away where we would pray together. Aunt Fatima told me to fill our water bottles and bring some dates in my bag. I did exactly as she said, but I was still half asleep and my mind was foggy. Looking back now, I realize I should have been more careful and paid more attention to what was happening around me. We started walking with the group just as the sun was rising. The desert looked beautiful in the early morning light, all pink and orange colors spreading across the sky. I walked behind Aunt Fatima, watching her footprints in the sand. But then I noticed my sandal was loose. The strap had come undone and sand was getting inside, hurting my foot. I stopped to fix it, bending down to tie it properly. When I looked up again, I couldn't see Aunt Fatima anymore. The group had moved ahead and there were so many people, all wearing similar clothes. I started walking faster, trying to catch up. I thought I saw my aunt's blue scarf in the crowd, so I followed it. I kept following that blue scarf for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, walking and walking. Finally, I reached the person wearing the blue scarf and touched her shoulder. But when she turned around, it wasn't Aunt Fatima at all. It was a complete stranger, a young woman I had never seen before. My heart started beating fast. I looked around and realized I didn't recognize anyone near me. These were all different people from a different group. I tried to go back the way I came, retracing my steps in the sand. But the wind had already blown away most of the footprints. Everything looked the same in every direction. Sand, sand, and more sand, with small hills and valleys that all looked exactly alike. I climbed up a tall sand dune, hoping to see our group from higher up. I could see some people far away in one direction, and some people far away in another direction, but I couldn't tell which group was mine. I decided to walk toward the group on my left because they seemed closer. The sun was getting hotter now, beating down on my head and shoulders. I walked for maybe 30 minutes, but the group didn't seem to be getting any nearer. In fact, when I looked back, I couldn't see any groups at all anymore. The desert had swallowed everything. I was completely alone. Panic started rising in my chest like cold water filling up my lungs. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt tight. I reached for my phone in my pocket, but when I turned it on, there was no signal. Just empty bars and a message saying no service available. I tried calling Aunt Fatima anyway, pressing her number over and over, but nothing happened. The phone was useless out here. I decided to keep walking because standing still felt even more frightening. I thought if I just kept moving in one direction, eventually I would find someone or something. The sun climbed higher in the sky and the heat became unbearable. It felt like walking inside an oven. Sweat poured down my face and back, soaking through my clothes. I pulled out my water bottle and took a small sip, remembering that I needed to make it last. After walking for what felt like hours, I saw something in the distance. My heart jumped with hope. It looked like buildings or tents, something man-made. I started walking faster toward it, almost running. But as I got closer, the buildings seemed to move away. Then suddenly they disappeared completely. It was just a mirage, a trick the desert plays on people. I had heard about mirages before but never experienced one. It felt cruel, like the desert was laughing at me. I sat down on the sand to rest. My legs were shaking and my feet hurt badly. I had blisters forming where my sandals rubbed against my skin. I checked my phone again even though I knew it was pointless. Still no signal. The battery was at 60%. I turned it off to save power, thinking maybe I would need it later if I got closer to civilization. The worst part was the silence. In the city, there is always noise. Cars honking, people talking, birds chirping, something. But here in the desert, there was nothing. Just the sound of wind blowing sand across the ground, a soft hissing sound that made me feel even more alone. I tried to remember which direction I had come from, but everything looked identical. The sun was almost directly overhead now, so I couldn't even use it to figure out directions. I stood up and started walking again, choosing a direction randomly. My mouth was getting dry and my lips were cracking. I took another small sip of water. The bottle was already half empty. Fear grabbed my stomach when I realized how fast I was going through my water. I had also eaten 2 dates, and only 3 were left in my bag. I decided to save them for later, even though I was hungry. As I walked, I started thinking about my family. My mother would be so worried when Aunt Fatima told her I was missing. My younger brothers and sisters would cry. My father would probably organize search parties. But would they find me? The desert is so big, like trying to find 1 grain of sand on a beach. I pushed these thoughts away because they made me want to cry, and crying would waste water from my body. The afternoon dragged on and on. I fell down twice, tripping over my own feet because I was so tired. The second time I fell, I just lay there on the hot sand for a few minutes. It would be so easy to just stay here, to just give up and close my eyes. But something inside me, some small voice, told me to get up. So I did. The sun was starting to go down, turning the sky orange and purple. Normally I would think this was beautiful, but now I was terrified. Soon it would be dark, and I would be alone in the desert at night. I had heard stories about the desert at night. The temperature drops quickly and it becomes freezing cold. There are also dangerous animals like snakes and scorpions that come out when the sun goes down. I finished the last of my water as the sun touched the horizon. The bottle was empty now, and my throat still felt like sandpaper. I shook the bottle upside down, hoping a few more drops would come out, but nothing came. I threw the bottle down in frustration and immediately felt bad about it. What if someone found that bottle and knew someone was lost out here? I picked it back up and put it in my bag. The darkness came fast, like someone turning off a light switch. One moment I could see the sand around me, and the next moment everything was black. The moon was just a thin slice in the sky, not giving much light. I could barely see where I was stepping. I was afraid of stepping on a snake or falling into a hole, so I sat down and decided to wait until morning. The cold came next, and it was worse than I expected. I wrapped my arms around myself and pulled my scarf tight around my body, but it didn't help much. My teeth started chattering and my whole body shook. I had never felt so miserable in my entire life. Cold, thirsty, hungry, lost, and completely alone. I thought about my warm bed at home, my mother's cooking, my siblings laughing and playing. It all seemed like a dream now, like it belonged to someone else's life. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every small sound made me jump. Was that a snake sliding across the sand? Was that a scorpion crawling near me? I kept my eyes open, staring into the darkness, seeing nothing but feeling like something was watching me. The night stretched on forever, each minute feeling like an hour. When the sun finally started to rise, I felt a tiny bit of relief. At least I had survived the night. But my relief didn't last long because now I faced a new problem. I had no water at all, and the sun would soon be blazing hot again. My lips were cracked and bleeding. My tongue felt thick and swollen in my mouth. When I tried to stand up, my legs wobbled and I almost fell. I was much weaker than yesterday. I knew I couldn't walk far today. Maybe a few hours at most before my body would give up completely. I started walking anyway because what else could I do? Sitting and waiting to die seemed worse than trying. But with each step, I felt my strength draining away. My vision started getting blurry and I saw dark spots floating in front of my eyes. I stumbled and fell to my knees. I stayed on my knees in the sand, too weak to get back up. The sun was climbing higher and I could feel it burning the back of my neck. I tried to stand but my legs wouldn't work properly. They felt like they belonged to someone else, like they were made of rubber instead of muscle and bone. I managed to crawl a few meters forward before collapsing completely onto my side. This is it, I thought. This is where I'm going to die. Alone in the desert where nobody will ever find me. My body will be covered by sand and I will just disappear like I never existed. The thought made me feel empty inside, like all the hope had leaked out of me and soaked into the sand. I lay there watching the sun climb higher. My thoughts became confused and jumbled. I started seeing things that weren't there. I saw my mother standing nearby, calling my name. I saw water, a whole lake of clear, cool water just a few steps away. But when I blinked, everything disappeared. Just sand and more sand and the burning sun. My mind drifted to questions I had never really thought about before. What happens when we die? Where do we go? I had always believed what I was taught, following all the rules and saying all the prayers. But lying there in the sand, facing death, I realized I didn't really know if any of it was true. I didn't feel connected to anything or anyone. I felt completely alone, like even heaven was far away and couldn't hear me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly desperate. Not the kind of desperate when you lose your phone or fail a test. Real desperate, the kind that makes you realize how small and helpless you really are. I had always thought I was in control of my life, making good choices and doing the right things. But none of that mattered now. All my goodness and all my efforts couldn't save me from dying in this desert. Something broke inside me in that moment. All my pride, all my confidence that I was a good person who deserved good things, it all crumbled like a sandcastle when the wave hits it. I realized I couldn't save myself. I had tried so hard, walking and walking, rationing my water, making smart decisions, but it wasn't enough. I was going to die anyway. With my last bit of strength, I opened my mouth and spoke to the sky. My voice came out as a whisper, dry and cracked. I said words I had never said before with such honesty. I told God that I couldn't do this anymore, that I was finished trying, that I needed help and mercy because I had nothing left. I wasn't trying to bargain or make promises. I was just being completely honest for the first time in my life. I admitted I was helpless and broken and needed to be rescued. After I spoke those words into the empty desert, I closed my eyes. I expected nothing to happen. I thought these would be my last moments, and I would just fade away into darkness. But something strange occurred that I still cannot fully explain even now. I heard a voice. Not with my ears exactly, but somehow inside my heart and mind at the same time. It was gentle and calm, not loud or scary. The voice communicated something to me about being living water, about being the source of life that never runs dry. I cannot explain how I knew what the voice meant, but I understood it completely in that moment. It was like someone was telling me that they saw me, that I wasn't alone, that I was known and loved even here in this terrible place. The feeling that came with that voice was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It felt like cool water being poured over my burning soul. Not my body, but something deeper inside me that I didn't even know was thirsty. For a few seconds, I forgot about being lost. I forgot about dying. All I could feel was this overwhelming sense that someone cared about me, really cared, not because of what I did or how good I was, but just because of who I was. Then the feeling faded and I was back in the desert, still lying on the hot sand, still dying of thirst. But something had changed inside me. I didn't feel quite as afraid anymore. I felt a strange peace, like whatever happened next would somehow be okay. I know that sounds crazy because I was still in terrible danger, but that's what I felt. I don't know how long I lay there after that. Time became meaningless. The sun moved across the sky, but I barely noticed. I drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes dreaming, sometimes awake, but always remembering that voice and what it had communicated to me about living water. Then I heard a different sound. This time it was a real sound with my actual ears. An engine. A car engine somewhere in the distance. At first I thought it was another hallucination, like the mirages I had seen before. But the sound got louder and louder. I tried to lift my head but couldn't. I tried to call out but no sound came from my throat. The engine sound got very close and then stopped. I heard a car door slam. Then I heard footsteps running toward me and voices speaking in Arabic. Hands touched me, lifting me gently. Someone was pouring water on my lips. I tried to swallow but choked. A man's voice told me to take it slow, just small sips. They carried me to their car and laid me in the back seat. Someone put a wet cloth on my forehead. The car started moving and I could feel the air conditioning blowing cool air on my face. One of the men was calling someone on a phone, probably for medical help. I heard him say they found a woman alone in the desert, still alive but in bad condition. I spent 3 days in the hospital. The doctors said I was severely dehydrated and had heat stroke. They put needles in my arms with tubes connected to bags of fluid, filling my body back up with the water it had lost. My skin was badly sunburned and I had cuts and blisters all over my feet. But the doctors said I was lucky. Another few hours in the desert and I would not have survived. Aunt Fatima came to visit me with my parents. She cried and cried, holding my hand and saying she was so sorry. She explained what had happened from her side. When they realized I was missing, the whole group had stopped and searched for me. They spent hours looking, calling my name, walking in every direction. Finally, the group leaders made them continue to the meeting point where they could get help and organize a proper search party. Aunt Fatima said she barely slept those 2 nights, praying constantly that I would be found alive. My mother sat beside my bed and stroked my hair like she did when I was a little girl. My father stood in the corner looking uncomfortable, the way men do in hospitals. He kept clearing his throat like he wanted to say something but didn't know what. My little sister brought me flowers and a card she had made with drawings of our family. Everyone wanted to know how I survived. They asked me to tell the story again and again. I told them about walking and getting lost, about the cold night and the hot day, about running out of water. But I didn't tell them about the voice. I don't know why I kept it secret. Maybe because I didn't understand it myself yet. Maybe because I was afraid they would think I was crazy from the heat stroke. So I just said I prayed and then the car found me, which was true, just not the complete truth. After I went home from the hospital, life returned to normal on the outside. I went back to work at the office where I helped manage appointments and answered phones. I saw my friends and attended family gatherings. I smiled and laughed and did all the regular things. But inside, nothing felt normal anymore. Something had shifted in me out there in the desert, and I couldn't shift it back. The words from that voice kept echoing in my mind. Living water. What did that mean? I thought about it constantly. When I drank regular water, I remembered. When I took a shower, I remembered. When it rained, which was rare in Riyadh, I remembered. Those words had been spoken to me for a reason, I was sure of it, but I didn't understand the reason. I became restless and distracted. At work, people had to repeat things to me because my mind was somewhere else. At night, I couldn't sleep well. I would lie awake thinking about that moment in the desert, trying to understand what had happened to me. It felt important, like a message I was supposed to decode, but I didn't have the key. Weeks passed like this. Then one evening, I was alone in my room with my laptop. I don't know what made me do it, but I opened a search engine and typed in the words living water. My hands were shaking slightly as I pressed enter. I told myself I was just curious, just looking, that it didn't mean anything. But my heart was beating fast like I was doing something dangerous. The search results filled my screen. There were many links, but one caught my attention immediately. It mentioned a story from a book called John, Chapter 4. I had heard of this book before but never read it myself. My hands trembled as I clicked on the link. The page loaded and I started reading. The story was about a woman who went to a well to get water in the middle of the day. She went alone at the hottest time, which seemed strange. The story explained she probably went when nobody else was there because other people looked down on her. She had made mistakes in her life and people judged her for it. Then a man was sitting by the well, and he asked her for a drink of water. As I read, something strange happened inside my chest. It felt tight, like someone was squeezing my heart. The man at the well started talking to the woman about living water. There was those exact words. The same words I had heard in the desert. The man told the woman about water that would never run out, water that would become a spring inside a person, giving eternal life. I read that part 3 times to make sure I understood it correctly. The man was talking about something deeper than regular water. He was talking about something spiritual, something that would satisfy a different kind of thirst. The thirst inside our souls, the empty feeling we get even when we have everything we need on the outside. I kept reading and discovered that the man at the well was Jesus. I had heard this name before, of course. I knew some things about him, that some people considered him a prophet, that he lived a long time ago. But I had never read his actual words before or understood what he taught. As I continued reading the story, I felt like I was that woman at the well. She was an outsider, someone who felt alone and judged. She was thirsty for something she couldn't name. Jesus knew everything about her life, all her mistakes and failures, but he didn't condemn her. Instead, he offered her this living water. He told her things about herself that nobody else knew, and she realized he was someone very special, someone who could see into her heart and still accepted her. The woman left her water jar at the well and ran to tell everyone in her town about him. She was so excited that she forgot why she even came to the well in the first place. Tears started rolling down my face as I read. I couldn't stop them. They came from somewhere deep inside, a place that had been locked up tight for my whole life. I realized this was me. I was that woman. All my life I had been trying to be good enough, trying to earn acceptance by following rules and doing the right things. But it never filled the emptiness inside. I was still thirsty, still searching for something I couldn't find. And in the desert, when I was dying and had nothing left to offer, when all my goodness and effort had failed to save me, that voice had found me. Just like Jesus found that woman at the well. He had communicated to me the same thing he told her. That he had living water. That he could satisfy the thirst in my soul. That I didn't have to earn it or deserve it. I just had to receive it. I sat there crying for a long time, staring at my computer screen. The story had unlocked something in me. All the confusion and restlessness of the past weeks suddenly made sense. I had been searching for the meaning of what happened in the desert, and here it was. This Jesus, he was the one who had spoken to me. He was the living water. He had found me in my most desperate moment, just like he found that woman 2,000 years ago. That night changed everything for me. After reading the story, I couldn't stop. I kept reading more and more, clicking from one page to another, learning about Jesus and his teachings. I read until my eyes hurt and the sun started coming up outside my window. I learned that he claimed to be more than just a good teacher or prophet. He said he was the Son of God, that he came to rescue people who were lost, that he died and came back to life to offer eternal life to anyone who believed in him. These were shocking things to read. My mind struggled with it all because it was so different from everything I had been taught my whole life. But my heart, that deep place inside me, kept saying yes. Yes, this is true. Yes, this is what you have been searching for. Yes, this is why you were saved in the desert. Over the next few weeks, I read everything I could find. I had to be very careful and private about it because I knew my family would not understand. I would wait until everyone was asleep and then read on my phone under my blanket, like a child hiding a flashlight. I felt guilty about keeping secrets from my family, but I also felt like I had discovered treasure and needed to understand it fully before I could explain it to anyone else. The more I learned about Jesus, the more everything made sense. He talked about people being lost and needing a shepherd. That was me in the desert, completely lost. He talked about people being spiritually dead and needing new life. That was me before, just going through the motions but feeling empty inside. He talked about people carrying heavy burdens and needing rest. That was me, always trying to be good enough, always afraid of making mistakes, always worried about what people thought. Jesus offered something completely different. He said to come to him, tired and burdened, and he would give rest. He said his burden was light and easy. He didn't ask me to do more and try harder. He asked me to trust him, to believe that what he did was enough, that his sacrifice paid for all my failures and mistakes. This was difficult for me to accept because I was used to earning everything. But slowly I began to understand that this was a gift, not something I could work for. I started praying, but in a different way than before. I talked to Jesus like he was right there in the room with me, listening to every word. I told him about my fears and my questions. I thanked him for saving me in the desert. I asked him to help me understand more and to show me what to do next. And somehow I felt like he heard me. Not in a voice like in the desert, but in a quiet knowing inside my heart, a peace that didn't make logical sense given my situation. The hardest part was living two lives. At work and with my family, I was still the same Aisha everyone knew. But alone in my room, I was someone new, someone who had found living water and would never thirst in the same way again. I knew this couldn't continue forever. Eventually, I would have to make a choice about what to do with this new faith growing inside me. I thought about that woman at the well again. She didn't keep quiet about what happened to her. She ran and told everyone, even though they had judged her before. She was so excited about meeting Jesus that she didn't care what people thought anymore. I wondered if I would ever have that kind of courage. For now, I was still afraid. But I also knew that Jesus understood my fear. He had found me once in the desert when I was lost and dying. I trusted he would guide me through this new wilderness too. My life looked the same on the outside, but everything had changed on the inside. I had been dead and was now alive. I had been lost and was now found. I had been dying of thirst and now had living water flowing inside me. Jesus had kept his promise to that woman at the well, and he had kept it for me too. The water he gave was exactly what he said, a spring that would never run dry, giving life that would last forever. Now I want to talk directly to you, the person reading my story. Maybe you are young, maybe you are old, maybe you are somewhere in between. Maybe you believe in Jesus already, or maybe you are curious like I was. Whatever your situation, I want to share some things I have learned since that day in the desert. First, I want to tell believers something important. If you already follow Jesus, please understand how precious your faith is. Don't take it for granted. Don't let it become just routine and empty habits. Remember that Jesus is not just a name we say or rules we follow. He is alive and real and wants a relationship with you. Talk to him every day like he is your closest friend, because that is what he wants to be. Read the Bible regularly not because you have to, but because it is how you get to know Jesus better. When I first started reading it, every page felt like treasure. I learned new things about God's character, about his love, about his plans for people. The Bible is not just an old book with stories. It is living and active, and God speaks through it even today. When you read it, ask the Holy Spirit to help you understand and apply it to your life. Pray without stopping. I don't mean you have to be on your knees all day. I mean keep talking to God throughout your day about everything. Thank him when good things happen. Ask for help when you face problems. Confess when you make mistakes. Share your joys and fears. Prayer is simply conversation with God, and he wants to hear from you about everything, not just the big important things. Love other believers like family. When I finally met other followers of Jesus, I discovered something beautiful. We are all part of one family, brothers and sisters connected by faith. We need each other. We should encourage each other, help each other, pray for each other, and forgive each other. Don't try to follow Jesus alone. Find other believers and walk this journey together. But also remember to love everyone, not just people who believe the same way you do. Jesus loved everyone, even people who rejected him and hurt him. He told us to love our neighbors and even our enemies. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything people do. It means treating everyone with kindness and respect, seeing them the way Jesus sees them, as precious people he died to save. Share your faith with gentleness and respect. Tell people what Jesus has done for you, like that woman at the well told her town. But do it with love, not judgment. Don't force it on people or act superior. Just share your story honestly and let God work in their hearts. Remember, you cannot save anyone. Only Jesus can do that. Your job is just to point people toward him. Finally, remember why Jesus came. He came to seek and save the lost. He came to give life to the dead. He came to offer living water to the thirsty. Every person you meet is someone Jesus loves and died for. Every person you see is thirsty for something, searching for meaning, longing for love. You have found the source of living water. Don't keep it to yourself. My story started in a desert where I was dying, but it didn't end there. It continued at a well where a woman met Jesus 2,000 years ago, and it goes on today as I follow him one step at a time. Your story might be different from mine. Maybe you weren't lost in a desert. Maybe you were lost in a different way, in sadness or fear or emptiness or guilt. But Jesus finds lost people wherever they are. He found me. He found that woman. And he is still finding people today. If you don't know Jesus yet, I want you to know he is looking for you right now. You don't have to be good enough or smart enough or religious enough. You just have to be honest like I was in that desert, admitting you need help, asking for mercy. He will respond. He promises to give living water to anyone who asks. That water will satisfy your deepest thirst and change you from the inside out. So my encouragement to all of you is this: take your journey with God seriously. Love him with all your heart. Love other people the way he loved you. Read his word. Pray constantly. Stay connected to other believers. Share your faith. Keep growing. Don't give up when things get hard. And always remember that you are deeply loved by the God who made you, who knows everything about you, and who gave everything to rescue you. The woman at the well left her water jar and ran to tell others. I am doing the same thing now, telling you my story, hoping you will discover the same living water I found. May you never thirst again.